A helpless lion cub swept away by a raging river, a desperate cry echoing through the wild, and a rescue so unexpected it will leave you breathless. This is the remarkable story of courage, instinct, and the unbreakable bond that changed everything in the heart of the African savanna. The sun had just begun to rise over the African savanna, painting the horizon in shades of gold and amber. A warm breeze swept across the tall grass, carrying the scent of morning dew and the distant calls of waking animals. Near a rocky outcrop, a lion pride began to stir from its peaceful slumber. Mothers stretched their tired limbs, young cubs tumbled over each other playfully, and the proud male kept watch from a shaded patch of earth. Among them was the smallest cub of the pride, curious, gentle, and endlessly adventurous. While the others wrestled and chased shadows, he wandered off toward the sound of rushing water. The recent storms had transformed the calm river into a restless, swirling force, but the cub, innocent and unaware, saw only a shimmering path reflecting the early light. He stepped closer, pawing at the muddy ground, fascinated by the movement of the water. Behind him, the pride remained distracted, too far to notice the danger growing with each tiny step he took. The peaceful morning was about to turn into a nightmare no one expected. The storms from the night before had turned the once gentle river into a roaring beast. Waves slammed against the muddy banks, swirling with debris and broken branches carried from miles upstream. The little cub stood at the edge, mesmerized by the movement, unaware that the ground beneath him had softened dangerously. A sudden crack echoed, a patch of mud giving way. Before the cub could react, his tiny paws slipped forward. His body lurched, and in a heartbeat, he plunged into the churning river. A splash, a desperate cry, and then he disappeared beneath the surface. The cold rush of water swallowed him, spinning him helplessly as he gasped for air. Back on the riverbank, the mother lion jerked her head up. She heard it, the unmistakable cry of her baby. Her heart pounded as she sprinted toward the sound, her powerful roars ripping through the morning stillness. The pride followed, panic spreading through them like wildfire. They reached the river just in time to see the cub's head bob above the water, his blue eyes wide with terror as the current dragged him farther away. The mother roared again, helpless, unable to reach him. The nightmare had begun. The river tossed the tiny cub like a helpless leaf caught in a storm. Each wave crashed over his head, forcing him underwater before he could cling to another breath. His paws paddled wildly, but the current was far stronger than anything his small body had ever faced. Mud filled his mouth, cold water stung his eyes, and panic tightened his chest as he fought to stay afloat. Along the riverbank, the mother lion sprinted desperately, her paws digging deep into the soaked earth. She followed the cub's cries, roaring with a mixture of rage and terror. But every time she drew close, the river pulled him farther away, slipping through her grasp like a cruel illusion. The pride ran with her, helpless, frantic, powerless against the raging water. The cub slammed into drifting branches, scraping his soft fur, yet he pushed on, struggling to keep his head above the surface. Exhaustion began to weigh on him. His movements slowed, his breaths grew shallow, and fear clouded his once bright eyes. For a moment, he was swept into a whirlpool of mud and debris, his small body disappearing beneath the chaos. When he resurfaced, trembling and weak, it was clear he could not survive much longer. And still, he cried out, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. Just when the cub's cries seemed ready to fade into the roar of the river, a deep rumble echoed from the trees nearby. The ground trembled softly as a massive figure emerged through the thick brush. An old elephant, towering and wise, with weathered tusks and calm, intelligent eyes. He had been on his morning walk to the river, but something had stopped him, something he couldn't ignore. The desperate cry of a dying cub. He paused at the riverbank, his enormous ears lifting as he scanned the water. The mother lion spotted him instantly, her instinct telling her to retreat. Lions and elephants rarely walked the same path without conflict. But today, something was different. The elephant didn't raise his trunk in warning. He didn't charge. Instead, he stepped closer, lowering his head as if listening carefully. Then he saw it, the tiny cub struggling against the current, barely managing to keep his head above water. With a deep, determined breath, The elephant moved toward the edge, planting his feet firmly in the mud. His eyes sharpened with purpose. He understood the danger. He understood the urgency. And in that moment, he made a decision. He would save the cub. The elephant stepped into the river, and instantly the force of the current slammed against his massive legs. Mud swirled around him, water rising up his sides as he pushed forward. Each step was a battle, yet he moved with unwavering determination. His trunk lifted high, searching through the spray and debris for the tiny life he had sworn to save. The cub drifted closer, tumbling helplessly in the violent water. His paws twitched weakly, his cries now faint and broken. Just when another wave threatened to pull him under, the elephant extended his trunk, sweeping aside branches and swirling mud until, finally, he felt the soft, trembling body of the cub. Carefully, he wrapped the tip of his trunk around the cub's midsection, gripping just firmly enough not to let him slip, yet gently enough not to cause harm. The mother lion watched from the riverbank, frozen between terror and hope. Her roars softened into trembling whimpers as she saw her baby lifted from the water. But the rescue was far from over. A surge of the river slammed into the elephant's side, forcing him to brace himself or risk losing them both. He planted his feet firmly, leaned into the current, and step by deliberate step, carried the fragile cub towards solid ground. At last, after a grueling struggle, he reached the bank, and with unmatched tenderness, he placed the cub before his mother. The little cub lay trembling on the muddy ground, exhausted, soaked, but alive. His mother rushed forward, nudging him gently, licking the mud from his fur, her eyes filled with relief, so deep it almost shimmered. The cub let out a weak purr, pressing his tiny face against her chest, grateful for the warmth he thought he might never feel again. The pride gathered around them in silent awe. And just a few steps away stood the old elephant, breathing heavily, droplets of river water sliding down his wrinkled skin. For a moment, predator and giant herbivore simply watched each other. No fear, no rivalry, only understanding. The mother lion lowered her head ever so slightly. A gesture of respect, a thank you beyond words. The elephant responded with a soft rumble, then slowly turned back toward the trees, disappearing the same way he had come, quietly, humbly, as if saving a life was just part of the rhythm of the wild. And so, the savannah learned a gentle truth that day. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones we least expect, and kindness has no boundaries, not even in the heart of the wild.